The following program, The Lightning Strike, is sponsored by Mohammed Fahim, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Folks, again, we're getting into a kind of like a dystopian world over here. Every day that I get up, I hear something crazy that our president and his handler, for lack of a better word, has come up with during the night. And we are going to be paying the price for this for a long time, folks. Our children and our grandchildren. You talk about having a deficit and having our children and grandchildren pay for the deficit. All this crazy stuff that we are going to right now that we are seeing, we are going to be paying for that for the rest of our life and beyond. I've got in the studios with me Alderman John Arena.
Good morning.
And Ken DeLuke.
Howdy, folks.
Sheila White. And,
good morning.
And Maria Muzaffar is in the studios with us, and she would be joining for her segment at 9:30 sharp. And it is going to be one more of those days. John, why don't you get started and see what is happening over here?
A lot of stuff in the news this week. A lot of stuff in the news, of course. Locally here in Illinois, Pritzker did his annual budget address and State of the State address. It was a really interesting address. I think it was incredibly well written. Pretty much a level set budget in terms of funding. He talked about expanding some of the medical debt relief program that started in the 2025 budget. This is obviously the 2026 budget we're talking about. So in terms of what the budget proposals were, I think that I don't think there was a lot of news there, except we're projecting lower revenues in 2026. We're kind of coming off of the pandemic increases that were there in terms of buying and money in the stream. And I think the bigger picture is what's going to happen with federal funding that's going to come into the state. And he, at the end of the speech, I think he kind of addressed that in a way, and we have a clip for that. We also have a longer clip we'll play after this first clip, because he talks about the amount of money that the federal government, the Trump administration, is talking about cutting, and what we need to worry about is where these cuts are coming from. So, for example, one of the things he talks about is 70 food service safety inspectors are cut from our meat processing plants. This is just in Illinois. So how does that affect, what the price is?
Our food supply and our food chain also.
And again, all this was about inflation, right? So if you cut food safety inspectors, you're like, well, how does that affect inflation? Well, you can't release meat into the stream if it hasn't been inspected. If it has, so it doesn't go in, and then it doesn't get trucked to the grocery stores and doesn't end up on your shelves, which means there's less product available, which increases prices and demand. Right? This is what we saw, during the crisis.
You're saying there's going to be an increase in inflation?
Yeah, I mean that's my
increase in egg prices.
Yeah. So
the excuse was that there are so many chickens that are sick. But I wonder where the eggs that are on the shelves coming from. I mean, the numbers that I heard recently from the administration was there was one chicken for every American. So there was like 330 million chickens in America laying eggs, and out of that, now only 280 million are left.
Okay, and what about the ones we're eating? See, that's the other thing. It's this isn't just the eggs.
These are the layers.
This is the layers, right?
So there's the layers, and then there's the meat chickens or whatever. But there's definitely some price gouging going out, John. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, you could call it price gouging. You can just call it supply and demand, which is a basic economics.
I know, but I mean, I understand the economics part of it. but there's definitely somebody making a lot of money off of this egg thing, okay?
Right.
And that interesting goes back to why revenues are coming down, because a lot of our revenue comes from corporate taxes, right? So we tax based on profit, right? That is reported by the companies. Their profits were high because they were gouging on all of the products that were leaned on the shelves. So that's flowing into why our revenues are coming down.
And remember,
because going to be less.
Well, here's the deal, too, guys. I mean, with the muskrats, Doge's 19-year-old kids going there and disseminating all these agencies, including the IRS. So how do you enforce tax laws if you have nobody there to do so? You're looking at, again, on the nuclear staff cuts, and now their hair's on fire because they realize, whoops, we shouldn't have done that. I mean, there's a brain drain in the system, and the problem is, even if they want to try to get some of these people back and they can't, you have key personnel that can't do anything. I heard a quote the other day. It said, anybody can kick, or any idiot can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one. Okay,
That's cool.
So how is it we're going to get these people back to do what they need to do?
Let's get these clips in, because we're going to go to break, and I want to get these clips in so we can talk about them.
Folks,
on the other
you
side.
are tuned into the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk radio station. You don't see my ugly face on Facebook today because I didn't shave. No, that's an excuse. Okay, I have some kind of a tickly throat going on. So anytime I want to go and cough, I don't want to be in the frame. So Maria is sitting in for me today. Okay. And Sheila's kind of blocking Maria. So Sheila, you need to look that way, man. Okay.
Hey, let's get to these clips, guys. So go ahead,
There's
Dylan.
a whole industry of backseat belly achers in this state and around the country who make a profession out of rhetorically tearing down Illinois and suggesting that if we would just enact one of their magic bean fixes, that we would never face another difficult budget year. But there's one thing that I've learned as governor: there are no magic bean fixes. And each year there's some difficulty that requires us to work hard to overcome it. This year the surfacing difficulty is Donald Trump's and Elon Musk's plan to steal Illinois' tax dollars and deny our citizens the protection and the services that they need. I want to offer you a few examples. 20 million Americans, 700,000 of them here in Illinois, will lose health care coverage if congressional Republicans are successful in their effort to cut the Affordable Care Act. And rural hospitals across Illinois will be shuttered.
He says a couple of examples. Yeah. So we're talking.
We think there's no effect as to what is happening over there.
Yeah.
And you spoke about brain drain. When you have brainless people running the country, brain drain is, one of the fundamental things that should be addressed. Sorry, John, go ahead. You were making a point.
Yeah, so, I mean, he talked about, obviously, food safety inspectors. He talked about, their people getting their health care cut and rural hospitals closing, which is a big problem, especially because those are some of the reddest counties, right, the more conservative counties.
Most of those counties voted for Trump.
Yeah, and they already have to travel 45 minutes to get to an emergency room. If hospitals close in Illinois, people are going to die. The other thing he mentioned later on, I just didn't want to run the clip too long, was that 12 million Meals on Wheels meals will be cut. That's 100,000 seniors and disabled people that will lose access to nutritious food. So these are the kind of real-life effects of this kind of policy that is going to trickle down. And it's interesting, he uses the term stealing our tax dollars. And we've talked about this a little bit, but you can look up this data, folks. It's there. Illinois puts $1.25 for every dollar we get back from the federal government versus states, other red states like, say, Kentucky, that put 75 cents in for every dollar they get back. So we are a contributor. So where does this go? If they say, we're not going to give you your money back, then I say, why did we give it to them in the first place?
Yeah.
This is going to be an interesting play.
Why should we be giving it to them, right?
Exactly.
And that is something that, folks, you need to talk to your elected representatives. Please flood their inboxes with emails, flood their phone mail with messaging. Tell them to please stand up. I saw Chuy Garcia the other day, and he spoke up, which was nice. And there were a couple of other Congress people who spoke up. But our other Congress people over here, Raja Krishnamurthy, not a peep out of him, okay? Lauren Underwood, not a peep out of her. It was so fascinating for me to see what are these guys waiting for. So if you want to really make a change, folks, talk to your elected representatives.
And not only talk to the representatives, talk to your neighbors. I mean, a lot of good people I know, they voted for Trump, and they're looking at the news media, and they see him signing all these things, and he's getting stuff done. What they don't really understand, because they're not educating themselves, they just think that he's being progressive and doing something that's important. They don't realize that he's cutting their knees out from under him, okay? You have to realize that it doesn't affect you right now, but guess what? There's a good chance in the near future it's going to affect you. Trump has the worst approval rating in the honeymoon period from any president ever right now. Normally, he's now underwater, okay? More people disapprove than approve. Normally, that honeymoon period lasts till August, and he's already getting to the point where it's almost gone. And this summer, people are going to feel it. You can't just look at the news and say, hey, this guy is doing something. I really like what he's doing. You have to see what he is doing. That's so important. Yeah. So be aware and talk to your neighbors and friends and make them aware this is affecting their lives. So reach out to your congressman and let's get something done quickly.
Yeah. And here's the thing, guys. Again, it's not just affecting you, it's going to affect your upcoming generations. This is a generational shift in American policy that is going to come back and haunt us. We have already lost face all over the world. Now the world is ganging up against us. Okay, how do you square that circle? That is my question. And anytime that you come up with some kind of a funky little thing saying that, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and here's an executive order, you cannot run a country by diktat. Okay, that's not going to happen.
No.
But we are allowing it to happen. And we are just sitting back and saying, maybe, in the next, there may not be another election because this guy stood up and said,
I'm a king.
This is the last election that's going to be happening. Mm-hmm. So we have to somehow get the word out. Kash Patel got confirmed. 47 to 40.
51, right?
Yeah.
No, 49. Yeah.
51, 49. Right? So by about 1 or 2 votes.
Yeah, there were two Republicans, Murkowski and Collins voted.
Right.
But even Mitch McConnell, who voted against RFK Jr., didn't vote against him.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with him since he's not going to be running for re-election. He should have done what was right for the country.
And he's such a good guy.
Okay.
So here, I'd like to transition, because this helps us transition into the end of the speech, which is a little bit longer clip. But just want to point something out, and this may seem disjointed a little bit, but once you hear what Pritzker ends the speech with. So the number 2 at the DOJ is named Bovey, is his last name.
Yeah.
Emil Bovey. So he is actually representing in court the dismissal of corruption charges against Eric Adams, which is a really clear case of corruption.
Quid pro quo.
Now, why is the DOJ literally dismissing a slam dunk case without prejudice? Without prejudice is a legal term meaning we can bring these charges back later. Okay.
Guys, we have to take a break real quick.
Let's do that in a second, because I think we got to kind of keep the flow here. Okay. He is claiming in court that he has the federal government and the Trump administration has unreviewable authority to dismiss the charges even if there's a quid pro quo. Quid pro quo here is that Mayor Adams, you help us with our immigration policy, with our ICE raids. We'll hold these charges back, but we're holding them back. Literally, we can bring them anytime as soon as you disagree. So what does that mean if maybe they bring charges against a sitting congressperson and they say, well, we'll dismiss them if you just vote with us every time?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why most of these Congress people are not stepping up to the plate. Okay, they got something to hide. I'm sorry, guys. Most of our Congress people are corrupt. Okay, and if you dig into them, you're going to have some issues that are definitely going to come out. Those skeletons are waiting to be found in those closets. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back after the break. You're listening to Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk radio station.
You should know. Let your friends and family go.
Looking for personalized, family-friendly dental care? Visit Distinctive Family Dental in Joliet, where Dr. Sunil Karup and his expert team bring 25 years of experience and state-of-the-art technology to your smile. Unlike corporate-owned practices, we focused on tailored care for every patient, ensuring healthy teeth and perfect oral hygiene. Discover why families trust us for all their dental needs. Call 815-439-1270 or visit distinctivefamilydental.com today. Distinctive Family Dental, 2405 Essington Road, Suite D, Joliet, Illinois, 815-439-1270. Your smile deserves the best.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd Greenlight expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Lightning Strike. I'm kind of sitting off of the camera on Facebook so you don't see my face. And anyway, my face is made for radio, not for television, okay? So we've got the right people facing the camera today. And Ken, you're saying something.
Yeah, we have a caller. Welcome back. Roosevelt, you've called before. What's on your mind?
Thank you for taking my call, gentlemen.
Hey, Roosevelt.
Real quick, I want to see what your take is on this. By the way, good morning. I'm sorry. I'm trying to...
No, good afternoon. We're almost there.
So can we say now that officially we're done as a democratic nation and we're on the side of axis of evil, let's say, because we're on Russia's side? Because of our
we have our president claiming to be a king. I think you're pretty close on that, Roosevelt.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, luckily, there's a change in the House every 2 years, and there still is the 25th Amendment, which may be possible being evoked, because as congressmen are looking at their constituency and they're starting to get upset in the red states, it's not an unlikely deal that there may be possible impeachment, possible 25th Amendment. He keeps on doing this crazy stuff. There's still a chance, Roosevelt. Okay, there's still a chance we can save our democracy. So I'm going to look positively, think, on that end of it.
Guys?
The most important thing, Roosevelt, I mean, I know that you and we have been in conversation for almost a year now on WCPT, and you have always been good. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors. Educate them. I think that is the most important thing that we can do, is talk to our friends, our family, our neighbors, educate them, and tell them not to lose hope, okay? Most of these crazy executive orders that this guy keeps on signing and flashing on television are being blocked by the courts. Okay, so we still have a semblance of a judiciary left with a spine, even though our elected representatives seem to have lost their spine a long time back, both in the Congress and in the Senate. Nobody wants to step up to this guy, okay? But hey, keep the faith, man. Keep up the faith. We are here for you. Don't worry about it. And thank you so much for calling in, Roosevelt.
Thank you, guys.
All right, John, you were saying that you have another clip from...
Well, to his point, and Pritzker, I think, addressed this. This is a little bit of a longer clip. It's a couple minutes, but I think it's poignant, and we can talk about it on the other side. Go ahead, Dylan, with that next clip.
I do not invoke the specter of Nazis lightly, but I know the history intimately and have spent more time than probably anyone in this room with people who survived the Holocaust. Here's what I've learned. The root that tears apart your house's foundation begins as a seed of distrust and hate and blame. The seed that grew into a dictatorship in Europe a lifetime ago didn't arrive overnight. It started with everyday Germans mad about inflation and looking for someone to blame. I'm watching with a foreboding dread what is happening in our country right now. A president who watches a plane go down in the Potomac and suggests without facts or findings that a diversity hire is responsible for the crash. Or the Missouri Attorney General who just sued Starbucks, arguing that consumers pay higher prices for their coffee because the baristas are too female and non-white. The authoritarian playbook is laid bare here. They point to a group of people who don't look like you and tell you to blame them for your problems. I just have one question. What comes next? After we've discriminated against, deported, or disparaged all the immigrants and the gay and lesbian and transgender people, the developmentally disabled, the women, and the minorities, once we've ostracized our neighbors and betrayed our friends, after that, when the problems we started with are still there staring us in the face, what comes next? All the atrocities of human history lurk in the answer to that question. And if we don't want to repeat history, then for God's sake, in this moment, we better be strong enough to learn from it. I'm not speaking up in service to my ambitions, but in deference to my obligations. If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic. And all I'm saying is that when the 5-alarm fire starts to burn, every good person better be ready to man a post with a bucket of water if you want to stop it from raging out of control. Those Illinois Nazis did end up holding their march in 1978, just not in Skokie. After all the blowback from the case, they decided to march in Chicago instead. Only 20 of them showed up. But 2,000 people came to counter-protest. The Chicago Tribune reported that day that the rally sputtered to an unspectacular end after 10 minutes. It was Illinoisans who smothered those embers before they could burn into a flame. Tyranny requires your fear and your silence and your compliance. Democracy requires your courage. So gather your justice and humanity, Illinois, and do not let the tragic spirit of despair overcome us when our country needs us the most. Thank you.
The governor has said, gather together. Do not let this thing take us down, folks. And I am so proud. I don't use the word lightly. I don't, go for the proud work of, things. But I'm proud to have a governor who's standing up to this thing that is happening. And folks, before you want to get into any kind of despair, look up to the governor. I have always, had fun with him. Whenever I meet with him, we crack jokes and all of that. But now this is not a joke. This is becoming so serious.
And to give a little bit of hope, at that time when the Nazis, they were supposed to go into Skokie, they wound up going into Market Park. Instead of a big group of them, there was only 20 of them. I was actually there that day, not on the Nazi side, by the way.
How do we know that?
How do we know that, right?
How do we know that?
But I got to say one thing. One nice thing, the Civil Liberties Union actually defended their right to protest, which is kind of counterintuitive with what they were doing. Yeah. So, that was kind of an amazing thing. So you can stand up for the right things, and as long as you get the message out and people understand it, it goes good. So we're going to take a super quick break and then come back with Maria's segment, Breaking the Echo Chamber.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd Greenlight expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Looking for personalized, family-friendly dental care? Visit Distinctive Family Dental in Joliet, where Dr. Sunil Karup and his expert team bring 25 years of experience and state-of-the-art technology to your smile. Unlike corporate-owned practices, we focused on tailored care for every patient, ensuring healthy teeth and perfect oral hygiene. Discover why families trust us for all their dental needs. Call 815-439-1270 or visit distinctivefamilydental.com today. Distinctive Family Dental, 2405 Essington Road, Suite D, Joliet, Illinois, 815-439-1270. Your smile deserves the best.
Are you tired of hearing the same old talking points? Ready to dig deeper into the headlines that shape our nation? Join us on Breaking the Echo Chamber, a fresh, fearless segment on the Lightning Strike radio show. Every Sunday at 9:30 a.m., Maria Mozeffer takes you beyond the noise and beyond the divides. She'll break down the nation's biggest legislative stories, unpacking the truth behind the spin and exploring perspectives that matter to you. Tune in to the Lightning Strike on WCPT 820 a.m. and be part of the conversation that challenges the status quo. Don't miss Breaking the Echo Chamber, where the echo stops and the dialogue begins. All right, welcome, Maria. Let's break that echo chamber.
Thank you. So first of all, we are in a dialogue. We are in a dialogue, and I think on many levels now the echo chamber is breaking. Absolutely, it's breaking. First, I want to start out by speaking about, since we're here in Illinois, the governor's address. So I 100% believe that his ability and his choice to be direct on what we're seeing with the federal government was necessary. I'm glad that he took the shot. I'm glad that he took the shot, no matter what part of the aisle you sit on, because this type of conversation has to break open in a big way. It's going to require a response, and it's going to require direct verbiage. So I'm happy that he did that. But there's another part of this as well in his address, is that what we had spoken about last time is that with all of the federal firings and talking about fraud and waste, and those are the terminologies, you know, something that I brought up last time was like, well, why can't the Democrats come up and say, clearly there is fraud, there is waste, but this is a process issue, not a substance issue, right? So I think what the governor did in his address is really speak about the fact that that issue is very, very relevant to him. He specifically spoke about education, healthcare, keeping jobs. I think it was really good that he went into detail about the different companies that came in. I think he spoke about Rivian coming in and then giving jobs to Illinois, right? And then putting investment in there. He spoke about economic growth. He spoke about Marshalltown buying out Vaughn. And so he's really getting into those details that people wanted to hear when they went out and they voted for President Trump. They wanted that kind of detailed discussion about how are we going to keep our jobs? How have you protected our communities with investment? So that's critical. And I think what he also did, which was very powerful, is speak about healthcare and prescription drugs, which I thought was very, very critical as well. He called out the middleman I think that he called them PBN, PBM, right? So the middleman and really how to keep those drug costs low. So now we're talking about things that are really beyond abstract, and that's what we needed to see. So, you know, as much as we hate extreme executive orders and slashing and the visual of all that, right, on any side of the aisle, we don't want to see like that type of aggressive movement and action without proper process. What it did do is that forced the Democrats to say, we really have to get into the details. We need to tell people that we know numbers, that we care about jobs, that we put in investments. And I think he did that beautifully in the address. One thing I want to speak about is this statement he spoke about the Nazis and the Holocaust and the destruction of our communities, right? We all know that. We read that in textbooks. So many examples throughout history. We saw it in Bosnia. You know, we saw it with Wadea al-Fayumi as a Palestinian, right? Like individuals and communities that are targeted that result in genocide. And so for him to speak about Holocaust and those situations that occur, they do always stem from the breaking of a process in the Constitution. And that's what we are seeing. So I want to juxtapose this now, and how this is going to play out really is very interesting. Now that we have the Democrats talking in detail about jobs and investment and numbers, right? Because that is a counterpunch to a person who's been very successful in business and can say those things, and that's why he became president. I want to talk about the image of Elon Musk with the chainsaw. Right, yep. So we saw the image of Elon Musk with a chainsaw, and then we hear our governor speak about, you know, the crashing on the Potomac River and how that was somehow attributed to a certain ethnicity, and just the juxtaposition of that. And so I think the question is, who are we as a nation? What cues are we taking? And I would say I love this address. I really love this address, but he said something very significant that I want to build on, and that is all the good people in Skokie said, not on our turf. So we need to figure out who the good people are. We need to figure out who the good people are. Do they belong to a certain political party? Do they vote a certain way? Right? And I think that I don't think that we can divide ourselves in that. I think there's good people. I'll take this phrase, good people on both sides, and we have to be able to walk forward and understand. And I'm glad that he spoke about the issue of what happened in Skokie, because it gives you a recognition that ordinary people can stop a movement. And is this a movement that can be stopped? And that's the question.
Well, that is something that we want you folks to chime in. If you want to join the conversation, feel free to call in. Our number to call in is 773-763-9278. And you can always, we're going live on Facebook also, so if you want to make a comment on Facebook, feel free to chime in over there. This is our country, folks. We got to get it back. We got to take it back. And don't let the media rhetoric divide you into a Democrat and a Republican. Yeah. It doesn't matter, okay? If you look at the end of the day, we are all Americans. My passport has no designation on it of either a D or an R. When I travel abroad, people look at me and I go, here's my passport. It's a U.S. passport, okay? So that is something that we have to watch out for, folks. D, it doesn't have a D, an R, or your race, or your ethnicity.
Race is really an important issue because don't fall down that rabbit hole. There is not an enemy out there that you can blame for all of your problems, okay? We're all in this life together, and it has to be addressed together. And don't let someone say that guy is bad and these immigrants are bad, or that ethnicity is bad, and that's why you have a problem and I'm going to solve it, because that's never worked and it's not going to work. It's just going to give them power and money.
Yeah, and I think we have to sit back a little bit too. Like, when we speak about the issues of policy and the issues of substantive change, we need to get beyond who's leading the system here, and we have to talk about what we're doing to change policy, right? Are you going to be a person that stands in Skokie and says, not on our turf? Maybe not in that way. Are you going to be writing legislation? Are you going to be calling your elected official? Where are the good people? I want to know, are the good people listening today? Where are the good people?
Well, yeah, I mean, we hope that they're there, right? But I think he literally broke down the amount of time it took for the Nazis to break down the democracy. Yeah. We're 1 month in. That leaves us 3 weeks, right? 20 hours, 2 days and 8 hours. To do this. The problem is we're right here in this now. They're doing this fast. The image, so much of what affects our public perception of things is very quick clips, very short, very impactful images. Why did he walk on stage with a chainsaw? Because he wants to look like the hero that's saving your taxpayer dollars. The problem is Nothing has been shown to save a dime in any of the cuts. It really doesn't matter. And I think the challenge here is we know there's numbers that don't work in what they're doing. The problem is the voters didn't see that after a $2 billion invested in an election that said, here's the reason why we have inflation. It was so much easier to say it's those people in Springfield, Ohio, eating cats and dogs. Mm-hmm. That kind of insanity, that kind of messaging is exactly the things that were put in front of people over and over again. And in authority, you say stop talking about Nazis, fine. You could look at any authoritarian regime. The Russians do it right now. Putin does it right now in his country. And this thug, this gangster that we have as a president, looks at the world the way gangsters look at territory. Mm-hmm. China, Russia, the United States. Mm-hmm. That's the breakup of the world that they are leading us to.
So I will say this, I want to specifically speak about the word Nazi, because I was listening to a podcast, and there was a lot of coverage on how Trump's statement on the fact that he was sympathetic to Nazis when he was speaking about
Mm-hmm.
Charleston was heavily edited by the media, and he is actually condemned harshly. He said those people should be punished. Anyone that is prejudiced and should be, I think it was like anyone who's a Nazi should be punished severely. So the Republican pushback and the administration's pushback to be called a Nazi and Nazi sympathizers is very, very very important to them, and I understand that as well, because the media cuts. But I think I want to talk about how we can listen to the governor's address, speak about Nazis and how they operated, right, without getting into the back and forth about, is Trump like a Nazi? Is he not? That's going to get us lost. Yep. So I think the story in its own is about the apathy of constituencies and letting go of their power when processes are breaking down in front of them, right? We're not watching the show. This is not entertainment. This is not a movie. This is real life.